Welcome to the Broadside Podcast.
With host, my dad, Andy Elliott.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Broadside Podcast, your number one podcast in Washington State for hunting, news, and information. I have no idea if that's true, but it sounds good. Anyways, I'm Andy Elliott, and on today's episode, I was joined by Justin Dorr. Justin Dorr is a turkey hunting fool. If you've heard episode 2 of this podcast, we chatted with Justin a little over a year ago about his quest for chasing 49. I encourage you to go listen to that episode. But anyways, he's on a mission to hunt to harvest all 49 huntable, or a species of huntable turkey in all 49 states. So we catch up with Justin and see how his last season went. Hear a little bit about his trip to Mexico and a few other things. It's a great conversation. Justin's an awesome guy to talk to. And in other news, I just dropped a new website, so it'd be cool if you guys can go check that out. I try not to do any sponsorship things or any sort of monetization of this podcast, and in order to kind of keep it free from what some people might see as swayed information. I enjoy just doing this for fun. So if you want to support me and this podcast, you can go to my website, elliottOutdoors.com, and pick up, maybe your new firearm, ammo, hunting gear, knives, bows, meat processing stuff, anything you can think of, your ammo, whatever you need. Head on over there, check it out. I've got some discount codes going on now. There's a 10% off on your entire cart with discount code Open Season. Listen to some more episodes. I'll be dropping some other discount codes. When this drops, there should be 15% off all shotgun ammo. I got a Mossberg on sale, P365 XL on sale. So head on over to that and pick up some of your stuff. And if you don't see anything you're looking for, shoot me a message, DM me, Instagram, Elliott Outdoors. Shoot me an email on the website. Sign up and subscribe for the newsletter so I can send you info on new deals coming down the pipe. But anyways, I'm excited to do another podcast. It's been a little while.
I know.
So let's dive right into it. And thanks, guys.
Okay. Well,
Now we're recording. Somebody didn't hit the button, and that was me. So once again, if you want to introduce yourself.
yeah, I'm Justin Dorr. I live in Selah, Washington. Been married for 30 years. Got a couple kids that are grown up and like your age.
Yeah.
Doing their own thing, which helps me to be able to afford to be gone and goofing off more for sure. But most importantly, the boss is the one that allows me to go goof off, and I really owe a lot of my chasing turkey experiences to her. So. Yeah, no, I have a little construction business, and that also helps to give me a little bit of free time, and the last couple of years to be out chasing critters, and things are going pretty good in my life right now.
Yeah. So if you heard episode 2 from last year, Justin was on talking about that would have been your 2022 season.
Yeah.
Yep. And then so we're just gonna go ahead and go through his 2023 season, which we just got halfway through, but somebody didn't hit record. And so if you wouldn't mind kicking off and talking about how that went.
Yeah. So last season was pretty spectacular. I mean, I started off with 17 states completed before last season started, and I had a decent game plan for about 10 or 12 states for last season was kind of my goal. And, it takes a boatload of research. I mean, I'm constantly, staring at the computer and looking at different states and their dates that they're going to be open, and their, different license ways that they license. I mean, some states are closed on Sundays. Some states are only open, half a day, and lots of different rules and regulations to follow, and it takes a boatload of research to go, chase turkeys across the country. So with that said, I had this game plan of, 10 or 12 states I was going to try to hit, and I ended up hunting in 22 states last spring. 19 of them I harvested turkeys in that were new and that I hadn't been to before. The other 20, 21, and 22 were on my way home finally, which were Montana, Idaho, and Washington. Washington was the only state I didn't harvest a turkey in the spring, which is it's actually it's funny, but it wasn't that funny because I tried. I gave myself like 3 days to hunt turkeys, and I tried pretty hard. Anyhow, it just didn't come together. So there was one state I didn't harvest a turkey in last spring, and that was Washington. So
Struck out in the home state.
yeah, pretty spectacular. I don't know many people that have harvested turkeys in 19 brand new states in a single season. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure that somebody's done it, and there's probably somebody that's done more, but it definitely wasn't my goal, and it just happened. I mean, once I hit the road, I just loaded down my rig with literally everything, and all the camping gear, my tent, and coolers and camp stove and barbecue, and all my clothes and literally everything I had, and hit the road. I wasn't really planning to stay gone that long, and once I got out there, it was like, I'm in Pennsylvania, like New York's just right there. What are you gonna do? So anyhow, the season last year started in Hawaii. Hawaii was the first state to open, and it opens on March 1st, and so it probably attracts a lot of attention for travel and turkey hunters. It's the first state you can go to go hunt. And Sarah Lynn and I went, and we went with another couple, and we just had a stinking blast there. It was so much fun. We spent a week and just treated it like a vacation, and the girls hung out by the pool, and Bill and I were out chasing turkeys, and anyhow we were super fortunate. We hunted on Mauna Kea, which is the volcano there, and the birds on Mauna Kea live like 6, 7, 8, 9,000 foot in elevation, and it's real desolate in there. There's really not that many roost trees, and you think it'd be pretty easy to locate birds, but it was a challenge. It's really rough terrain. It's rocky. It's that volcanic rock. I mean, you fall on that stuff, it will just trash you. And matter of fact, there was a kid this year that I follow on Instagram. We follow each other, that went there for his first time, and he split his whole knee open, got a whole heap of stitches. Like, he really tore himself up. And one little slip, and that, it's steep. You're on the mountain, And anyhow, so Bill and I each ended up harvesting 2 turkeys there, and I also shot a wild pig there, which is the first pig I've ever shot ever gotten. And we just had a blast. We took that pig home, and of course the turkeys, and we had a huge big feast. We marinated that thing in some teriyaki, and then cooked it on the barbecue there in our little BRBO house that we had, and it was awesome. I mean, I know, like in Texas and stuff, they're vermin and they shoot those things and leave them lay. But I think if it's a 80-pound, 100-pound pig, you better take it home, because that thing was delicious. So yeah, we had a big feast, and had some buddies over that joined us for supper. The Steven Spurlock with Chasing 49, Jake Jeter, who I've hunted with quite a bit, and they came over, and we had a big feast. And then we also we went up on the volcano to take some pictures of our birds. And there's a plant there up on the volcano that grows at, like, I don't remember what it is exactly, somewhere between like 8,000 and 9,000 feet. It's called the silver sword. And anyhow, just a really cool plant that I think that's one of the only places in the world that plant grows. And so we went and found those and took our turkey pictures with it, just so it kind of creates some good memories. It just shows, kind of where you were at. That's the only place that those things grow. So, you can look at that picture and go, oh, yeah, that's Hawaii,
What, like, interrupt you here, but like, what's that thing look like? Like, is it like
it's kind of grows up like this, and it's got all these real silver looking stems that come up at it, and it's all volcanic rock, and then you see these like silver looking plants. It's kind of, I'm trying to think of something that would be similar to it.
Almost like an aloe plant or something?
Yeah, it's kind of like an aloe, only the leaves or quills or whatever you want to call them that come off of it are much smaller in diameter. Aloe is pretty good size and has these kind of things that shoot out of it like that. But the silver swords are just a lot smaller, real similar in the way that they come up and kind of branch out in these little bushes.
Huh.
They're really cool looking.
I'll have to check those out.
I have some great photos. with those silver swords, and with Sarah Lynn and Bill and Marcia, we got some really cool pictures where there's like clouds down below us because of our elevation.
Oh, yeah.
Clear up on the mountain, and we tried to drive up. There's actually a road that goes up the mountain. We tried to drive up there, but it had snowed up on top, and so they closed the road down because there was like 2 inches of snow on the road. And we're like, we pulled up to the gate, and I told the guy, I'm like, hey, look, we're from Washington State. Like, a couple inches of snow doesn't mean jack to
Our
us.
school
Like,
bus is still driving.
Can we drive up there? He's like, sorry, man, can't let you. So, but it was cool that there was a road that goes to the top. That's pretty wild.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
There's like I would have never thought of snow in Hawaii.
Yeah. Nuts.
Like it doesn't register in my brain that there's that kind of terrain there.
Yeah. No, you can be. We went snorkeling while we were there, which was super fun. I don't know if you've ever done that. But it's like being in a fish tank with tropical fish. Like, it was really cool. But you can be snorkeling, surfing, and snowboarding all in the same day in Hawaii. Like, it's pretty cool to be able to do that. So, yeah, Hawaii was a great start. It was really fun. We had a good time, and got the bird in the bag and headed home. Got home and went to work for a couple weeks, and kind of finished my planning of the different states I was going to try to make it to for the spring. And when I got home, I got all that stuff organized and ready to hit the road, and loaded the pickup down with everything I owned, and off I went. So first place I headed to was Texas, and way down south. Texas is broken into two halves basically for their turkey hunting season. So the southern part opens first. And so my goal was to run down there way south. I was clear down by Corpus Christi, and I mean, it was like a couple-day drive. It was a long ways to drive down there. So got down there, and of course the weather had changed, and it was miserable. It was like 80 degrees in Corpus Christi the day before I got there. The day I get there, it's like 45 degrees and raining and crappy and thunderstorms. So made the hunt a little bit tough, but ended up finding the bird like midday the next day, and harvested that bird, and then beat cheeks from Mississippi. And the reason I wanted to get to Mississippi fast was I had drawn a tag that allowed me to hunt there at the beginning of the season. So typically Mississippi, unless you draw a tag, it's closed to non-resident hunters for the first 2 weeks of their season. So
how long is like the total season?
I think I'm not sure. I think it's got to be over a month in Mississippi. Their turkey numbers are declining, and so a lot of these states are being really proactive on, trying to maintain what they've got. They're changing season dates. They're pushing seasons back. They're doing a ton of research to try to, get this corrected. And some states are picking on, non-resident hunters. Like, hey, look, we don't want you here for the first couple weeks, And I think a lot of the birds get harvested in the first week or two of the season. And so it just makes it tougher for a non-resident to come in there and find a bird and harvest them, especially Mississippi, because you're not going to, there's a long heritage of turkey hunters in Mississippi. Grandma hunts turkeys in Mississippi, so nobody's going to give you any info. No one's going to let you, hunt a turkey that's in their backfield or something. They hunt them. So you're going to be on public land, you're going to be in national forests, and you're going to just have to,
struggle bus
down and get after it. So Mississippi, the year before, I had told you we were, I'd hunted 9 days in Mississippi before and didn't even have a chance to communicate with a turkey. So I didn't have a good experience in Mississippi. so a little bit of a vendetta there. I was going to go back. I was in a whole new area, a new national forest ground, and I set up camp in a state park there in Mississippi. And I like to stay in state parks because you could kind of somewhat guarantee that your stuff would still be there when you get back from hunting. And typically there's a camp host. There's also a place, they might have a shower house and restroom and all that kind of stuff. To me, it was worth the $7 a night to pitch a tent, And so anyhow, I camped on a lake in the state park, and I had hunted for 5 days in Mississippi and yet to hear a turkey. And I'd just like see a track and get all jazzed about, like, oh my God, there's one that lives here somewhere. I mean, it's tough hunting. And I'm sure if you've got private land or your own hunting lease or whatever, it's different. But public land Mississippi, that's a tough gig. So,
No automatic feeders. And,
no, none of that. So anyhow, I was frustrated and tired. You know, I'd already spent 9 days the year before. Here I am on day 5, and so it's like middle of the day. I decided to go back to my camp. So I get back to camp, and you know, I make a sandwich, and I'm having a beer and a sandwich at my picnic table, and there's this big black guy who's down fishing on the lake, like right next to my camp. He's not 100 yards away from me, you know. So I'm watching him fish, and he's catching some perch and stuff, and I'm watching him fish, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go visit with this guy. So I finish my sandwich, and I grab a beer, and I head down there, and I'm thinking, you know, I'll visit with him and BS, give me something to do for a little bit and take a break. But you never know, that guy might have stumbled across a turkey on his way to the fishing spot that morning.
Yeah.
You know, I might get some info from him, you know. And so I start chatting with him. He's really a cool dude. We visited for a long time, and I found out that he works at the Tyson chicken plant, and they kill 400,000 chickens a day at the Tyson chicken plant in 2 shifts, like 200,000 chickens a shift, and they in like an 8.5 or 9-hour shift or whatever it takes, I guess, to get through their birds. It's just crazy. Like,
yeah,
it blew
it's
my
insane.
mind, you know. And anyhow, so we started talking about that, and he asked me where I'm from, and I'm like, oh, I'm from Washington State. And he's like, holy moly, you know, you've traveled a long ways. And he goes, I've never been anywhere. And I'm like, what do you mean you've never been anywhere? You know, he's like, yeah, I've never left my hometown. And I'm like, seriously? And he's like, yeah, you know, I've never really had the need to do any traveling. You know, I just stay right here, and I've been at the Tyson chicken plant for 24 years. You know, and I, you know, got a few weeks of vacation now, so I come down to the lake here, do a little fishing, and I'm just thinking to myself, you know, oh my goodness, you know. So then we start talking about wages, and I'm like, Jackie, how much you make at the Tyson chicken plant, man? He goes, I make $16.05. And I'm like, holy crap, you know. And he could probably see it on my face, you know. I'm trying to be positive because that's just who I am, you know. And I go, Jackie, what's the minimum wage in Mississippi? And he's like, I don't know, man. I go, okay, well, if I started working at the Tyson plant, you know, tomorrow, what would my starting wage be? He goes, $15.
Oh my God.
And I thought, holy Christ, this man has been there for 24 years. He makes $1.05 more than somebody that starts, you know, that day.
Yeah.
And this guy is happy as all get out, right? And so it was just a real, you know, defining moment, you know, in my whole season, really. I kind of used Jackie as fuel for the remainder of the season. You know, when I was tired or things weren't going well, you know, I would think about Jackie, or Sarah Lynn would remind me of Jackie, you know. And because here I was, you know, clear across the country, you know, chasing a dream, you know, hunting a turkey in every state is my goal, and meet a man that's never even left his hometown, you know, makes that kind of money and is happy as all get out, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, who in the hell am I to be pouting and kicking rocks and belly aching and, you know, frustrated and sitting in my camp, you know, having a sandwich in the middle of the day because I'm tired or, you know, whatever. And here this dude's, you know,
Never been out of the zip code.
Yeah, and he's happy, you know, so who the hell am I, you know? So I used old Jackie as fuel, you know. I would be, you know, frustrated or tired or, you know, whatever, and I'd be talking to Sarah Lynn, and she'd be like, you know, what do you think old Jackie's doing right now, you know? And I'm like, yeah, Ma, you're right. You know, Jackie's watching another stinking white chicken go by on a conveyor belt, you know, and he's happy.
Yep.
And happy to do that. So, you know, it was a really neat experience. It was fun to visit with him, and, you know, I enjoyed that whole thing, and it really was super good fuel for me, you know, for the rest of the season. So I left Jackie, went back to camp, and the funny thing is, I went into town, went to the hardware store, and I was looking for a fishing pole. And anyhow, so I get in there, and the gal at the hardware store is like, yeah, we don't sell that stuff here, you know, which, like, our hardware stores have, you know, sporting goods in them, you know, a little bit of stuff in them.
Yeah, half of them you can buy guns at.
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, she's like, if you want a fishing pole, you got to go down to Papa's, you know. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So she's like, you go down to the, you know, whatever, the Texaco, you hang a right, you know, head down the highway, you'll see the bait signs. And I'm like, okay. So I go find this bait shop. Well, here's this other, you know, good old southern Mississippi boy out front washing his car. And I pull in there. He's like, "Hey, can I help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm looking for a fishing pole." And he's like, "Oh, okay." So, he drops the stuff and he walks over to the bait shop door. Well, it's got this big wrought iron, gate on it. He unlocks that stuff and unwraps the chain and opens the shop up. And it's like 2 in the afternoon. He clearly hadn't had a customer yet. And so anyhow, we walk in there. Well, shoot, it's actually, it's a pretty dang nice shop. Like there's some real high end, bass poles and there's some good stuff in there. And so I told him, I'm like, hey man, I just ran into this dude that was, fishing by my camp and he was catching some crappie. And I go, I just kind of want to take a break for the afternoon and just catch some perch or whatever. I'm just looking for like a cheapo rod,
Yeah.
he goes, oh, hang on a minute. He goes, I'll go see what I can find. He goes, go back there and, pick yourself out some jigs and stuff. So I go to the back of the store. He leaves me alone in the store. I start loading up my hands with, crappie jigs and some bobbers and some different things. Pretty soon he comes back in and he's got this fishing pole and a reel, and he looks at the stuff in my hands. I had some pretty good handfuls of goodies, and he's like, "How about $30?" And I'm like, "For everything?" And he's like, "Yep." And I go, "Perfect." So I handed him $40. Shook his hand, have a great day, and off I went. Back to camp. So I spent the rest of that afternoon just catching fish, catching crappie, and just kind of relaxing. I ended up keeping several of those crappie. Went back to camp and filleted those fish, and I had them laid out there on a piece of foil, and I was carving up some onion, and there was a couple of college girls that went to Arkansas State that was on spring break, and they were camped like just kind of kitty corner from me, but they were walking their dog down to the lake, and so they just stopped in to BS, and the one girl's like, "Hey, what are you going to put on that fish for seasoning?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." I go, "I had some salt and pepper, is about all I got." And she's like, "You ever tried Tony's?" And I'm like, "Huh?" She's like, "Hang on a minute." So she goes back to her camp and comes back with a little green, tub of seasoning, and she's like, "Just keep it, you're going to like this stuff.
Oh,
just
yeah.
keep it and sprinkle it on your fish." So I did. I put it on there and a little butter and wrapped it up and threw it in the barbecue, and it was awesome. It was a great fish, and just really enjoyed, the rest of my afternoon. Just kind of took a break, thinking about Jackie and just sort of, hit the reset button in Mississippi, And so the next day I head out and don't hear a turkey that morning. I keep pumping it all day, just putting the miles on and working. And finally, right about dark, I heard a turkey gobble. And I was walking when he gobbled, and if you're moving, when you hear that sound, it's real hard to pinpoint like where it came from, So I just froze and just listened. Well, he never made another noise, but at least I knew there was one there. I'm like, this is a win. Finally, I heard they exist here, And so next morning, I get out to that same area, hike in there in the dark, and I'm standing there in the dark. It's starting to get light, and that bird gobbled one time from the roost, and I was able to kind of pinpoint where he was, and I walked in that direction, and I wasn't like super sure where he was, but I just thought I was getting close, and so I just sat down by a tree there and waited for it to get light, and I figured he'd probably flown down. I didn't hear him fly down or anything. He never gobbled again, and I figured that he's probably on the ground now, so I called a little bit real soft. He didn't answer, and I kept watching for him, and I'm thinking, man, this bird just walked off. Like, he didn't have any interest. And then finally I saw a little piece of his fan in this like river cane stuff that's kind of similar to bamboo or sugar cane looking thing that grow on the river bottom there in Mississippi. And he was in the middle of this sort of thicket of that stuff, and I would just catch glimpses of him kind of going back and forth. He was just sort of strutting back and forth in there, So he obviously he'd heard me and he knew I was there. He just was going to let that hen come to him. He's smart.
Yeah, is that like, you probably attribute like just their schools, right? Like they're not going to get vocal, and they're a little bit smarter and more seasoned vets.
Oh,
down
absolutely.
there.
Yeah. Those birds are well educated, especially on public land. Everybody in Mississippi hunts a turkey, so you got to play your cards right. And so I'm really not sure what to do. I mean, my mind's kind of racing. I've put a lot of effort, a lot of days into Mississippi, and so I'm just kind of waiting him out. As long as I can see him, I'm at least feeling somewhat comfortable that he's in the neighborhood, And so finally, I thought, I'm going to make just a couple little yelps and see if I can get him to come this way. And so I squeak out like 3 little yelps, and he doesn't gobble or anything, but I kind of see his head poke up, and he looks in my direction, and then he just walks right out of that cane and just walked right straight down my gun barrel. So anyhow, wasn't long before I was holding my first Mississippi bird, but it took, 9 days the first year that I was there and 7 days the next to finally get a turkey in my hands, And that's, talk about a pretty rewarding experience when you put that much effort in to, harvesting a bird. I was pretty jazzed about it. I'll never come back to Mississippi. I'm out of here, So it was the whole experience was really good. It's, a true trophy is measured by the amount of effort put into the chase. So I can tell you that bird was a real trophy to me.
Yeah.
So
that hard work pays off. Whatever you're doing, it's always more gratifying when you have to actually put in a bunch of effort.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. So that and meeting Jackie and kind of using his, life as fuel for me and what I was doing was a real defining moment in my spring too. So I thought about him often, when I was tired and grumpy.
Yeah, just a simpler life where.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So after Mississippi, I was in Alabama. Was able to harvest a bird in Alabama. Met up with some friends there that I had met actually the previous season. Also, I hunted Alabama and didn't harvest a turkey in Alabama either. So it was my second year in Alabama and. Got lucky and got a bird in Alabama, and then headed off to Florida. I met up with Sarah Lynn and her mom in Florida with some my nephew and niece and their family, and just spent a few days kind of chilling in Florida for a little bit. Taking a break. Sarah Lynn and I actually went and tried to get her an Osceola turkey in Florida, but it didn't work out. So we saw some birds, but just didn't make it happen, and we honestly weren't trying that hard either.
Yeah, vacation mode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I spent a few days, hanging out with the fam in Florida. Had a big turkey nugget feast there, which is always fun. They have a bunch of kids, and so fed everybody turkey nuggets, which those things are spectacular if you know how to prepare them. And so that was fun. Then I think after Florida, I got invited through a guy that I met like on Instagram or whatever. There was a kid that reached out to me and had seen that I was traveling, and because I post a few things like on my story or whatever, kind of what's happening, or a picture of a turkey or something. And so anyhow, he's like, "Hey, you gonna come to South Carolina?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually that was my plan, And he's like, "Well, if you want, he goes, I can kind of show you around a little bit." He goes, "My birthday tomorrow, and we're going to have a low country boil for my birthday." And I don't even know what the heck that is, but it's kind of like, and so he gives me the address. It's his grandparents' place, and they have a big wedding venue. It's this really cool old barn, and they had a bunch of cornholes set up, and then the low country boil is kind of like a Louisiana crawfish boil, sort of, only it's shrimp, and then the little corn on the cobs and spuds and sausage
gotcha. Okay.
and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They had this big table full of all the goodies. So he ended up being really a good Southern gentleman, young man. Like, we had a good time together, and met his uncle and kind of ran with his uncle. Another buddy of his from Florida was there, and I got lucky and actually harvested a bird with him the very first morning of the hunt, the very next morning.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, it was not a whole lot of struggle for whatever reason. We had tried, it was not the very first setup, but we tried a few different things and ended up, finally getting it to come together. So there was a funny one that happened in South Carolina, though. So we were hunting on private ground on this farmer, and the kid that I was running with, he's like, well, let's go see Duff. Duff was this farmer's name. He's like, "Let's go see Duff, and we'll show him your turkey, and you can thank him and stuff." And I'm like, "Absolutely, I want to go meet Duff." So we get to Duff's place, and he's out. I mean, there's a picture of this dude on my social media crap. But anyhow, he's like literally like the straw hat farmer dude, right? The South Carolina farmer guy with overalls, like blue jean overalls, with jean patches like on the knees that are
Nice.
different colored jean patches and
yeah.
like some other patches that he's an older guy that obviously his wife had sewn these things up and patched him up for a while, And so anyhow, we visited for a little bit, and then pretty soon he's like, "Hey," he goes, "you boys want to deliver some taters for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, whatever you need us to do, So he's like, "All right." He goes, "Oh," and then we started BSing about some other stuff, and then I'm like, "Hey, we better get going." I go, "Where's those potatoes at?" And he's like, "Potatoes? You said something about potatoes." And I'm like, "Well, you said taters." And he's like, "No, I'm talking about sweet taters." He said, "I'm talking about no potato." And I'm like, "Holy smoke. Okay." So anyhow, he goes and gets her in like a wood crate. He grabs these sweet potatoes and throws them in the back of my pickup, and we deliver them like, a couple blocks away to the neighbor or whatever and drop them off for him. It's just typical Southern stuff. Like, you just don't know what's going to happen, So, so that was South Carolina. Then, oh my God, it's going to take us for hours if we're going to go through all these states. But I ended up in, oh my gosh, I went from South Carolina to Virginia. I mean, it's kind of a challenge. You're bouncing around to not always what is the closest to travel to, but maybe what the next state is that opens.
Yeah.
And so, I was in North Carolina for a while, for a couple days. I really didn't have any states that were open, and I had a couple days of float time, and so I was kind of scouting in North Carolina, and then I decided to go meet a buddy of mine in Virginia, so I zipped over to Virginia and hunted Virginia, and then we went back to North Carolina after Virginia. Had some success in Virginia, had some success in North Carolina. I was running with my buddy Jake Jeter, who's from South Georgia, and actually right when we were kind of in the middle of that Virginia North Carolina thing with Jake, they released a movie that I don't know if you watched it or not, but the Chasing 49 with NWTF put this movie out called what the heck it is. You can look it up like on YouTube or something. Type in NWTF Go West Young Men.
Yep.
And that movie is about the season that I met Jake Jeter and Hunter Lemoyne. They were chasing their U.S. Super Slam, and they came out out west.
Yeah.
And through some mutual friends, or Steven Spurlock with Chasing 49 reached out to me. He was like, "Hey, these guys are coming out. Like, do you want to lend them a hand?" And so, anyhow, that was a couple years previous, and they finally got the movie put together, and it aired last spring. So
yeah, I remember seeing that and sharing that. So I'll put another link in this post in the show notes, so people can check it out.
I think it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Of course, I was part of it, so then I'm a little biased. But I think it's a pretty cool film.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so that was fun for Jake and I. We actually we were staying in a cabin of his family's in Maggie Valley, North Carolina. And so anyhow, we pulled the movie up on the TV and watched it on the TV. Had a whiskey or whatever and watched that movie, which was really fun. I mean, the show was about when we first met. And we've been kind of running together ever since. For at least a swing or two during the spring. So that was neat. Yeah, we had a really good time in Virginia. And actually, when I was in Virginia, I had harvested a bird, and then Jake drove from South Georgia to Virginia. It was like 15 or 16 hours or something. He drove that night, all night long. Got to Virginia like right about daylight. Got out of his truck, like threw his vest on and stuff. And I had roosted a bird that night, and so we just started hiking into the woods, like right from where I met him, and off we went. He ended up getting his bird that morning, the bird that I'd roosted. And we were sitting clear up on this hillside, kind of the northern part of Virginia, and we could see like on the skyline ahead of us, like I thought they were trees, but they were buildings. And what it was Washington D.C., just straight north of us. Well, that song had come out. What's that dude that? Oliver Anthony or Richmond from Richmond.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we're literally sitting there with Jake's bird. Jake likes to have a cigar after he shoots his turkey, and then he kind of likes to do a recap of the hunt and just sort of enjoy the moment for a minute, And I'm looking out there, and here's stinking Washington D.C., due north of us, So we're in the song, So anyhow, it was a fun experience. It was. The other thing that happened, another song, if you will, while I was in that neck of the woods, Virginia and West Virginia, is I drove through a John Denver song. Like I was literally across the Shenandoah River.
Yeah.
And I was in the Blue Ridge Mountains in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I remember I saw the sign, the river sign when I crossed the bridge, Shenandoah River or whatever, and it just triggered that, the John Denver song. And then I started thinking, I'm like, holy shit, I'm in a John Denver song right now. Like, this is great. I call my family up and they're like, yeah, that's great, Dad.
Yeah,
Whatever.
real cool.
Yeah, so what?
Yeah.
So, anyhow, if you, every state is memorable, and I have tons of stories in every single one, but I'll try to pick a few of them here that have some really good stories to them. Probably the next really fun one I would say was Kentucky, or not so much the fun, but just an interesting turn of events that happened in Kentucky. So I get into Kentucky, and I'd met up with a guy that it was like a three friend like referral, if you will, to finally meet this dude. And he jumps in a rig with me, and we go look at a couple different public spots, and then he had to go to work. So I start, kind of hunting these spots. One of them was down by this river bottom, and I hiked, I don't know, it was like 7 miles or something up this river bottom, and never heard a turkey. So I hiked back down and got back to my pickup, and I'm cooking like a hot dog on a barbecue or whatever. It's like lunchtime, and so I got my little barbecue out on the tailgate. I'm cooking this hot dog. Well, I look around the side of the truck, and here comes this, like, I don't even know, mid-'80s, like, Grand Am car. And it literally, the rear tire is one of those solid rubber donut spare tires. Like, they didn't make those in the 80s, right? Like, This dude got the spare tire from some other vehicle, right? And, I mean, I'm in the Timbuktu, Kentucky. Like, I'm a long ways from the paved road. There's nobody around where I'm at. And here this car is, driving up, alongside me, and I'm standing by my tailgate, and all these thoughts are going through my mind, like, Jesus Christ, your pistol is in the center console of your pickup, like, here you are standing here with your, you got nothing. And I look in the car, and there's this, like, long-haired, tattooed cigarette hanging out of his mouth dude rolling up in this old beater Grand Am, and I'm like, this just ain't gonna be good, So he rolls the window down, and he's like, you turkey hunting? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, Washington State, huh? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he goes, well, did you hear any down here? And I'm like, no, I didn't hear anything. And he goes, there was some birds in here like a week or so ago. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And he's like, well, hang on a second, let me call my dad. And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking in my mind, I didn't ask this dude, like, anything, He's just gonna get on the horn and get a hold of the old man, So he calls his dad, and he's like, Dad, you seen any turkeys around? I got this guy from Washington looking for a turkey, And the dad's like, yeah, I shot one a couple days ago over at, McCulloch's, dairy farm or whatever, Take him over there, introduce him to those guys. So anyhow, he gets off the phone, and he's like, hey, he goes, I got to go pick up my wife that works at the store in town, I'll meet you there. And then I'll show you this, I'll take you to this dairy place, and we'll go chat with them. And I'm like, okay. So I go into town, and sure enough, I see the dude pulls up, and this gal comes out of the store, jumps in the car. They disappear. Like 10 minutes later, he comes back, and he's like, you mind if I jump in the rig with you? And I'm just like, what the hell, man? Yeah, come on, let's go. So don't judge a book by its cover, right?
Yeah.
And so anyhow, so he jumps in, and we go talk to the dairy folks, and then we milled around there a little bit around some of the property that they had. I didn't really see much sign or hear any turkeys, and so he takes me to another spot to go check out. It's public ground, and he just kind of shows it to me, and then he had to go. So I took him back to the store and dropped him off, and then I drove back to that public spot, and it was like a really steep terrain, real steep hill. There was a river down the bottom of it, and then steep up the other side. And then looking on my Onyx map, I could see that there was some fields and stuff up on the other side that were kind of on the edge of public. And so I start hiking down in there. It just looked like a really good turkey spot, and that guy had told me that he'd seen some birds in there. And so anyhow, so I hike down this deal and kind of up the other side, and I called every once in a while. I get to the top of the ridge. It probably took me, I don't know, an hour or something to get to the ridge on the other side of the river. And I called and the bird answered. And I'm like, kind of sound like 2 turkeys. And so I'm like, sweet, so I start working my way down the ridge, and I'm looking on my map, and I can see, I'm probably, I don't know, a few hundred yards from private. And I suspect those birds are on private property. And so I thought, well, I'll get up there close and just see if I can drag them off of it, And so I kind of keep working that way, and these birds sound pretty interested, and so I'd call, and they'd gobble, and then when I got closer to where they were at on the private ground, I could hear somebody else calling. So I'd call, turkeys gobble, they'd call, turkeys gobble. I'm just like, holy crap. So now I kind of start ramping it up. Like I'm calling a little louder, a little more aggressive, And finally these turkeys just shut up. Like they've had enough and they go quiet. So I kind of try to work them for a while, and I'm like, these birds are fouled, so I'm going to get out of here, go see if I can find another bird. And so I spent the rest of the day looking for others, checking out other spots, and never heard another turkey. So I thought, well, I'm going to go back to that location. Those birds were there, midday. They probably roost along that ridge somewhere, close to that private ground or something. So it's getting later in the evening. I hike over there, and I get to a spot where I can listen. And, it's getting to be dusk time, and I'm expecting these turkeys to gobble. I'm thinking about maybe doing a coyote howl or something, see if I can get them to fire off and just try to put them to bed, So I got a game plan for the next day. So I'm standing on this ridge, and I hear these dang dogs barking. And I'm like, what the heck? And pretty soon, here comes this rabbit comes running by me, and then like 6 beagles. And I mean, these beagles are baying like crazy. It is so loud, I couldn't hear myself think. And I'm trying to stand here like quietly on this ridge and listen for a turkey, right? And so here comes all these beagles with these stupid rabbits running around in circles, and the beagles are chasing them. They're literally like running around me. The dogs are barking, and I'm just like, what in the hell? Damn it. So finally I'm like, well, I'm never going to put these birds to bed. Like, I might as well just hike out of here. It's getting dark, So I get back to the truck. Jump in the truck, I start driving down the road. Well, here's these guys pulled over along the road there, and they're looking at like a tablet. One guy's got a computer, another dude's staring at his phone, and one guy's got a tablet. Well, these stinking beagles have trackers.
GPS collars on them, yeah.
And so, I roll the window down, it's another opportunity. Maybe I'll get some turkey info or something, chat with these guys. And so I start visiting with these guys. Well, of course, they're the ones that are running the beagles, so obviously I'm not too happy with these dudes. They just screwed my evening, like trying to roost these turkeys, So I visit with them for a little bit, and he's asking what I was up to. Obviously, he could see I was from Washington by my license plate, and so I told him I was hunting turkey, and I said, yeah, earlier today I was over there, on a couple birds, and he's like, oh yeah, he goes, me and my son were too. So now this freaking guy, like, not only did he ruin my roost deal, he was also the dude that was over there trying to call him back to the doggone private ground, right? So now I'm like really not liking this guy, so of course he doesn't know anything,
Yeah.
So anyhow, I chat with him a little bit longer, and he's like, well, what are you going to do in the morning? And I go, the only turkeys I've heard here in Kentucky in this area is those up there on that ridge. I suspect they roost somewhere along that ridge, And so he's like, yeah, he goes, I know, I have a pretty good idea where they roost. And he goes, they do roost on the public ground. He goes, but first thing in the morning, they're headed to that field where my son and I were set up, And so I'm like, well, I go, my only play is to hike down this ridge and cross the river and up the other side and try to get between them, Like, I've traveled a long ways. Like, I got to kill one of these turkeys, And normally I'm not that way. I'd just be like, hey, have at them, But when you're on the road, you've got to make some decisions that maybe aren't always like, how you would normally behave.
Yeah.
And so anyhow, the guy goes, he goes, well, why don't you just take my spot in the morning? And I'm like, take your spot? And he's like, yeah, he goes, I've shot, he's an older guy. And he's like, I've shot all kinds of turkeys in Kentucky. So he goes, why don't you just hunt my spot? And he goes, I'll call my son and I'll chat with him, And I'm like, okay. So he gets his son on the phone. His son's on speakerphone. And he starts telling him about, hey, man, I met this dude from Washington. And, he seems like a pretty cool cat. He goes, why don't you take him hunting with you in the morning? And his son's like, who the hell is this dude? Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What's going on? And so anyhow, we kind of get all the details hashed out, and I told him, I said, well, if you guys, if I'm going to go hunting with your son in the morning, I'll just sleep out here on the, lean the seat back in my pickup and sleep on the ridge here, and he's like, perfect. He goes, we'll just come pick you up because I don't want the landowner to see another rig, especially somebody from out of state or whatever. You can just jump in with us and go out there and hunt, So I'm like, okay. So it was like 4 a.m. or something we agreed to meet. So they show up at 4 a.m. on the dot, and I grab my shotgun and my gear, and I jump in their rig, and off we go. Here I'm in stinking Kentucky. Like, haven't known these guys for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Jump in the truck, and off I go, So anyhow, they pull right out into this field, and it kind of looks just like I could see on my map, and we pull up there, and they've got like this little, camo netting blind. There's 2 of these like turkey thug chairs in the thing, and they've got like shooting sticks for their guns leaned up against their little blind deal. There's decoys in there and stuff, all this stuff like I don't typically use, And so I'm like, well, this is great, like, awesome. So the old man, he drops his son and I off, and we sit there in the dark, when I've never even met this dude, like, we start chatting a little bit, and he's like, his name's Lance. Lance goes, hey, he goes, I just want to tell you, like, my wife thinks you're a serial killer or something. You probably, like, you could take me and the old man out, or whatever. And I'm like, I start laughing. I go, well, my wife thinks the same thing because I told her what I was doing this morning, And she's like, you need to be more careful about these people you meet, And so anyhow, we kind of chuckle, and it starts getting daylight. Well, I call, and I don't hear him, but he hears turkey gobble. And so I wait a few minutes. I call again. He hears turkey gobble. It was like the 3rd time I called. Finally, I hear him. Well, they're coming now. I can hear them, So sure enough, 2 toms show up. We double up and shoot both these toms. And he calls the old man. The old man drives right out there in the middle of this field, picks us up, And so I'm like, hey, you guys, like, can I buy you breakfast or whatever, And they're like, yeah, the little store downtown or whatever. They got some biscuits and gravy and stuff. We'll go down there. So we were, take some photos and all that jazz, and then head down to the cafe, and I buy those guys breakfast, and we BS a little bit, and then finally Lance, the son, he's like, hey, you need a shower or something, man? And I'm like, dude, I could really use a shower. I'm like, yeah, can I smell that? Like, And so he's like, well, he goes, just follow me back to the shop. He goes, I got a shower in the shop. You can take a shower there. And I'm like, okay, So I'm thinking in my mind, it's like he's got like a man cave out in his farm shop or something, with a shower and a bathroom in it. So I start following him and his dad, and they go into, like, we drove quite a ways, and we're in a bigger town, and we pull up to like the strip mall and park in front of a barber shop. And I'm like, oh, shop, the guy's a barber, right? So we walk in this barber shop, and it used to be a fitness center that he bought, and so it had showers and lockers and all the stuff that you would normally have in a barber shop. So we walk in the door, and he's like, well, you need a haircut? And I'm like, yeah,
Why not?
Might as well.
Yeah.
So I plop in the old barber chair, get a haircut, hot shower. I mean, it was like, I just pinching myself, like, is this all this really just happened? Like, the old man gave up his hunting spot, hunting with his son. We end up doubling up on turkeys. I get a haircut and a shower, and they were just super good people. I mean, just good people, and you just never know who you're gonna run into or who you're gonna meet.
Yeah.
They started off like, I really didn't like either one of them. Their beagles fouled me up. They were trying to call turkeys away from me, And of course, they didn't know any of that. But it was, I mean, you just don't know how things are going to pan out or the people that you're going to meet. And all of my story, like, everybody's experience in chasing the Super Slam is different and unique to themselves. And all of my stories have to do with people, like everyone. I mean, harvesting a bird is obviously my end goal in every state, but what it's become is the travel and the people and the experiences that I've had with those people. Like, it's just been crazy. You just don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, well, it's what's crazy is, like, you probably have noticed the country is big enough that, like, each state's almost like its own country, right? Like,
yeah.
And everybody lives a little differently. and clearly a lot more simple down south.
Oh, for sure.
So,
For sure. I mean, you just, especially times like we live in now politically and, whatnot, you begin to wonder, like, are there any good people left?
yeah, yep.
And there's boatloads of them, man. And good people find good people all the time, It happened to me over and over again last spring and the spring before, in all of my travels. I've ended up, running into people that, have shared some info or shared a hunting spot or let me crash on their couch or, whatever, just things that you wouldn't think would ever happen, like, to meet somebody and 2 hours later you're sitting down at the supper table with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not the image you get when you watch the news. Like,
No, that's for sure.
Yeah, it makes you feel like everybody hates everybody.
Yeah, that's for darn sure. So yeah, Kentucky was a riot. I don't know too many people that ended up with a haircut and a shower and a turkey with their hunting partner in Kentucky. So I have a really good mixture of public land, if you will, and private land. And the public land is always my plan and my research, and chatting with biologists and all the the groundwork I do before I head out. But the private land seems to fall in my lap, like, over and over again.
Yeah, you're not going to turn it down, right? Like,
no, absolutely not. I mean, it doesn't. Is it going to be easier? More than likely, but there's no guarantee that you're going to harvest a turkey just because you got some private ground to play
Yeah.
on.
So what's where are you at right now? So, like, total states.
So I've completed 36. So I've got 13 states to go to finish out. So it's I actually feel like now like I have a chance. Like I can actually accomplish this.
You see the end zone.
I'm getting somewhere.
Yeah.
I still have a long ways to go, but after a season of knocking out 19 new ones in a single season, I feel like man, this is something I can accomplish. I've got some of the states I have remaining are going to be a little bit more of a challenge because you have to literally draw a tag to hunt there at all.
Yeah.
And which I did this year. I'm super fortunate. I drew a tag in Iowa this year. I drew a tag in Illinois. I've got a WMA to hunt, like a wildlife management area, they call it, in Louisiana, which might be a help. But I also have a buddy there that was in the movie with me, Hunter Lemoyne.
Yeah.
That lives in South Louisiana. So I'm really not too concerned about Louisiana. I know he'll lend me a hand, and but I'll probably try to sneak in there and hunt that WMA this season. It's going to be, I'm not going to be able to travel like I did last year. I've got a pretty big job to get wrangled this spring, and so I'm going to try to make just a couple of small swings and knock out a handful of states. And I'd really like to try to go for it next spring if I can. I think if I can accomplish this spring kind of what I've got in my mind, it would leave basically nothing but the East Coast for next spring and New Mexico. So
Gotcha.
I'm saving New Mexico to the end. I've got a really good buddy and his family that live in Arizona, and I'd kind of my season that started this whole goofy thing was when I drew that tag in Arizona and hunted with that family, and so I'd kind of like them to be there. It also would be an easier state for my family to travel out and probably stay with them, and then we can all drive out to New Mexico and hunt together. So kind of saving that one for my last one. I think it's a good turkey hunting state. I've got good opportunity that even being surrounded by family and stuff, hopefully I can play my cards right and get a good area to hunt and harvest a bird there. So I'm excited about that one because that'll be the end end deal. I'm sure we'll do some videoing, and I'm sure I'll be probably crying like a freaking baby when I get to the end of that.
So was there any like any sort of strategy to the states you pick each year, or are you just getting what you can get?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the strategy would be trying to minimize your travel, and also you have to be mindful of when they open and when they close, and timing. The other thing that gets you is weather. When I was in Mississippi, there was a tornado that killed like 20-some people or something, if I remember right, and it was like 30 minutes from me to the north of me. So, weather, you never know what you're going to end up with down there. It changes fast just like it does here. And so there's a lot of like it's tough, man. I mean, it's it sounds all great, but I can tell you I went through some tough times. Like there was I remember one night in Tennessee, I was staying in a state park in Tennessee and hunting national forest ground there, and I was so tired. I'd hiked so many miles that day. I was so tired driving back to my camp that I was just falling asleep. Like I could not keep my eyes open. And so I pulled over in like the ranger station deal. There's a little parking lot there, and I just pulled in that parking lot, threw the truck and parked, leaned the seat back, and I was out. And I got the crap scared out of me. So I don't know what time it was, 11 o'clock or whatever time it was. Somebody's knocking on my window. And I mean, I'm out dead asleep. I get up and I see this like flashlight is, pointed inside the rig, and I'm like, holy crap. Like my truck is on jacks. My tires are freaking gone. Like I'm about to get robbed. This is not good, And it was a park ranger. It was a gal, and she was kind of shining the light like at her face and her uniform so I could see her. So this is not her first rodeo.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you she knew everything about me before she ever knocked on my window. Like she'd probably run my plates, and I hope anyway.
Fucking Washington
Yeah,
State.
exactly. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, watching me drool on my stinking coat for 10 minutes. And anyhow, she's like, hey, you need to get back to your camp. Like, you can't sleep here, And I'm like, oh, Jesus. Like, you just scared the crap out of me. Like, So, I mean, that's a pretty good indicator of how tired I got after a while. You put a lot of miles on, you're working really hard, and that was, I was out, man. I was out on my feet trying to drive. Like, I just had to pull over and take a nap, So, it's just kind of part of the game, You're traveling at nighttime a lot of times to get to the next place, so you can be there, in time to hunt. And I had people that I was planning to meet, or people that I'd met, or buddies that had introduced me to other folks that I needed to get to, and that were going to lend me a hand. And you're just juggling a lot of different things, and then trying to be somewhat efficient in your travels.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I drove like 26,000 miles last spring or something.
Oh man. Past that extended warranty.
Oh yeah. I mean, I got my butt kicked in Pennsylvania and New York, and bounced back and forth between those states until I kind of ran out of time, and I had a tag that was only good for a certain window in Wisconsin. So some states, like, you don't have a tag for the whole season. You have a tag that's good for like a week. Or 4 days or whatever. Like, they separate it up into different seasons within the season, and that's what your tag is good for. And so I had to leave. I had to bail from New York, drove all the way to Wisconsin, then I hunted Indiana, and then when I was in Indiana, I'm like, well, not that far to zip back over to Pennsylvania and give it another shot, So there was some inefficient travel there for a while too. But luckily, when I went back to Pennsylvania, ended up harvesting a bird there after lots of trials and tribulations, and then into New York. Finally got a bird in New York. New York was kind of cool. There was a bunch of maple, like where they tap the trees and then run all the hoses and stuff for maple syrup.
Yep.
I've never seen anything like that before, so I was kind of checking all that stuff out, and ended up meeting the guy that that had all the lines and was harvesting the maple syrup, and he kind of took me through his whole operation and how they condense it and bottle it and all that stuff, which was really cool, So another one of those experiences where being a little bit of a tourist, like, I'd never seen anything, it's old hat to those guys, they live there, but for me, I'm like, what the heck are all these lines running around these trees, And so that was pretty cool. You want to do another state?
Yeah, or I don't know what time you got.
Move on to this season.
Well, we can. Let's see. So, let's talk about the latest trip.
The latest trip. So, my wife and I, last spring, while we were at the NWTF show in Tennessee, we bought a ocellated turkey hunt in Mexico, and I'd been kicking it around since 2020 when I completed the couple of Royal Slams. And in order to complete what they call the World Slam, I needed one more turkey. And it was an ocellated, which those turkeys you should look them up. They are spectacular, like just beautiful. I mean, the most beautiful bird I've ever seen, which I'm a turkey nut anyway. But those things are awesome. Our birds have like a really pretty iridescent, when the lighting is right. Our turkeys have, orange and yellows and greens and purples and blues and all this cool stuff when the light's right. Those turkeys are just that color.
Yeah.
Like, they're, freaking cool looking. And what's funny is that all the birds there, like, you don't see like Tweety birds in this area we're in Mexico. They're like red, orange, yellow parrots and parakeets and all these, like, everything's kind of colorful in the jungle, So anyhow, we'd bought the hunt the year before, and even though the timing wasn't that great, we hit the road here, just a couple weeks ago, and went to Mexico. I had hired an outfitter, and that a bunch of my buddies had been with this guy, and so I had really great reviews and knew that things were going to be good and that we were going to be safe because we weren't in a tourist trap,
the
like
golden
Cancun
zone
or something. Yeah, we're in the jungle, So, yeah, the hunt was super fun. Like, the people in camp were really awesome. I mean, I think they run 8 guys through that camp every week. The outfitter is El Halcon, and the owner is Manuel Enriquez, and really, really a wonderful dude. Like, just a super good guy, very accommodating. Just good people. His guides. I mean, there's a bunch of funny stuff about a hunt like that in old Mexico, if you will. The guides didn't speak any English whatsoever. My Spanish sucks. I know all the bad words and cerveza and baño, right?
Yeah. Important shit.
Yeah, exactly. So anyhow, there was some challenges, communicating with the guide and stuff, but the camp life and the people and the meals and everything were just awesome. I mean, I had the best what the heck are those things? Tamales that I have ever had. They were made of wild turkey. They were ocellated turkey tamales, but they wrapped them in banana leaves.
Oh.
So, our tamales are with corn husks, and a lot of times the moss stuff is like too thick and they get really dry. Well, this banana leaf method, which is, what they do in that part of Mexico we're in, that's how they do it. It keeps them super moist, and they were, I mean, I ate those things till I literally couldn't swallow, and then washed them down with more tequila. Right? I just couldn't stop. They were so good. But so yeah, all that part of the experience was great. The hunt part was different for me. I'm used to calling and making decisions on where to set up and all that stuff, and on a guided deal like that, which I'd never done before, you're just kind of along for the ride. Like, I was just the trigger guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I helped him set up the decoy and helped him set up the blind and brush the blind and, all that kind of stuff. But you don't call to those turkeys. Like, the sound they make is like something you heard on Jurassic Park. Like,
really?
Oh, dude, it's not a gobble. It's a weird, like, it starts off with kind of a drumming, like from a grouse, and then goes into some, Jurassic Park noise. Like, I don't know what else to say about it. Like, it's just, you're not going to, I don't know anybody that can imitate that. Like, it'd be impossible, So anyhow, we the very first hunt that I went on, like, when you get into camp, they feed you, and then you throw your hunting clothes on and head out with your guide. And the very first evening, like within 10 minutes of, we were set up, and they use like a turtle box as an electronic call, and then they just turn this thing on, like this gobble noise they make, and then they shut it off, and then wait like 10 minutes, and they turn the thing on for like one of these gobble noises, and then shut it off, And it was like 10 minutes that we'd been there, and this turkey comes walking out of the jungle into this field. We're on the side of like a cut cornfield kind of. Anyhow, this turkey comes out, and of course immediately the guide's like, grande, grande, and he's looking at it through his 1970 Bushnell scratched up binoculars. I'm like, I pull up my binos and I'm like, yeah, the hooks aren't that bad, Well, their spurs are really the only thing you can judge an ocellated turkey by. They don't have a beard, and then they've got this like top knot, this blue top knot thing on top of their head, and the size of that kind of, you can somewhat age the bird by the size of that, but it also, when they get excited or, jazzed up or angry or whatever, they raise that thing up anyway, like, so it looks big.
Gotcha.
But anyhow, so this bird comes out. Well, it immediately just jumps on the decoy, and I haven't hunted with the decoy for a couple of years, like, so I wasn't really used to seeing like all this show. And this bird is he is having a meltdown. Like, it is kicking the crap out of this decoy. Well, his decoy is hard plastic, and this bird, this is the craziest experience, but this bird ends up breaking his spur off.
Oh,
and I can see it in my binos. Like, the spur is broken. It's just hanging by a flap of skin, right? And so the dude, of course, is trying to get me to shoot this thing because he wants to get his, tip.
Yeah.
Like, my hunter harvested his turkey.
Job done, yeah.
Grande, shoot it. And I'm like trying to tell him that his spur's broken. And well, anyhow, the communication wasn't great. So I finally handed him my binos and I'm like, look at it, So he's like, oh, like, and then he breaks the other spur off.
Holy
so
shit.
This turkey has broken off. Now they're both like missing. There's blood all over the place. Like his legs are bleeding. The decoy's covered in blood. Like the corn stalks all around there got blood all over them. Like, this is the craziest thing. And this bird just keeps on beating up this decoy. Like, he won't stop. I mean, he gets to the point where he's tired. Like, his mouth is open. And, I finally started videoing him. Like, I'm not going to shoot this turkey now. I'm going to be like shooting an elk with no horns.
Yeah, right.
Bull
yeah.
with no horns. So, anyhow, we're like trying to shoo this turkey away. Like leave, dude. Like, we're tired of looking at you, So he finally gets a message. Like, this is the dumbest turkey I've ever seen in my life. Finally gets the message, and it goes back into the jungle, right? 5 minutes later, the turkey runs back out and starts beating the decoy up again. So my first experience with these birds is like, this is going to be like the easiest hunt I've ever been on in my life. Like, these things are dumb, So, anyhow, next day, we go out, and he does his little turtle box call deal, and I hear a bird drumming behind us, like in the jungle behind us, and we're set up on the edge of a field again, and this turkey will not come out. Like, I can hear him every once in a while. The guide has really good hearing. He can hear him a bunch, and he kept motioning like, I can hear him walking and stuff. Like an hour goes by, this turkey never comes out. Finally, I see him step out of the jungle. He looks around for like 1 second, maybe, right back in. And I'm like, okay, well, this behavior is nothing like the first hunt, So we saw more turkeys during that hunt. You go back to camp, have lunch and stuff, have a little siesta, and then go back out for the evening hunt. Literally the same experience. Like, they're super spooky and would come out just for seconds and then zip right back into the jungle again. Like, it's almost like they knew you were around or something was up, And they'd hang out behind the blind, so I think the call was bringing them to our location, but then they wouldn't come out in the open where you could see them. And when they did come out, we were in like a sorghum field, which is about a 4 foot tall, real green, stocky, bushy thing.
Yeah.
And they'd get in that, and you couldn't see like their spurs or anything. You could just see a head kind of bobbing through the sorghum. Well, the hens and males look exactly the same. They're both colorful. Like, there's literally no difference other than spurs or the little top knot deal. So it's hard to tell who's who, So anyhow, a few days of that go by. Finally, Sarah Lynn's with me in the blind, and these turkeys had been hanging out, same thing, right behind our blind again for, I don't know, an hour and a half or something. And I'm like, they know something's up. Like, these turkeys are not going to come out. Like, we can hear them like scratching, in the grass or in the dirt in the jungle, and I can hear them drumming every once in a while. And anyhow, they finally come out, and they're like 60 yards from us, and they look towards the decoy and then turn around and start walking away. And I'm like, oh, shit, here's my chance, So anyhow, I make a shot, drop this, gobbler or whatever the heck you want to call him, and run up there, grab this bird. Well, even at that distance with the TSS and stuff, it just toasted this bird. Like, both of his legs are broken. One of his wings is busted off, like at the base. And I'm like, my plan is to shoot one of these things in my lifetime and get it mounted,
Yeah.
So I was jazzed, like, world slam complete. And then at the same time, I was like, son of a gun, like, this dude is trashed, So anyhow, I pieced him back together. We were able to take some good pictures and stuff, and it was a super fun hunt. Everybody in camp was successful. I probably saw and heard more turkeys than anybody, just luck of the draw. I didn't have diddly to do with my ability. I wasn't calling or doing anything but sitting there, but just was super fortunate, But we all tagged out early, and then Manuel got us a van. We had loaded up in the van, went and toured some Mayan ruins for a day, which was awesome. I mean, just awesome. I didn't realize like the history of that. I mean, we're looking, climbing, of course, it's Mexico. Like if it was U.S., you'd be,
200
100 yards
yeah.
back behind
Yeah,
a
exactly.
stinking chain link fence,
Buying
trying
a
to take
ticket.
a picture. But there, like we're literally, you could just go climb around on the buildings, like walk around on stuff. Well, I mean, these things were built in like 2000 BC.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, pretty cool. And we had a little tour guide that spoke really good English, and she explained everything, and it was I mean, that, those people were probably eating the same darn turkey I just harvested, So that civilization, there was 25,000 people that lived there that they estimated.
Huh.
And so, I mean, this is desert Mexico, like just the challenges of, water. There was no water, they had to collect rainwater to drink and, all that kind of stuff. It was pretty awesome. I really enjoyed the Mayan ruin part of it.
So that's that completes the World Slam, right?
That is the World Slam.
So,
That's kind of the grand poobah of the slams, I guess, other than the U.S. Super Slam.
so shit. Sorry. That's what exactly is that? Because that's every huntable.
That's every huntable turkey species like
on the
world.
planet. Yeah. Okay, that's what I figured.
Which there's like there's a Grand Slam, which is a Merriam, a Rio Grande, Eastern Turkey, and an Osceola. Osceola you can only get in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Royal Slam is those 4 subspecies plus a Gould's, which generally a Gould's is taken in Mexico. I was super fortunate and drew a tag in Arizona. And so, and then the next step up from that is a World Slam, which is harvested in an Osceola or an ocellated turkey in Mexico. So, yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, that was the whole goal of going to do that. And, the takeaway, just like all my other hunting adventures, was, the bird, obviously, that was great. And I completed the World Slam. But again, it ended up being about the people in camp and the fun that we had. I mean, we had so much fun with those guys. There was a couple dudes that were just so stinking funny. I mean, my cheeks were sore, my stomach was sore from laughing at those dudes in camp, and just sharing good times and good memories with those people. It's really what I've discovered. Like the whole thing is about.
Yeah. So you've got the World Slam now, and you've got, did you say 13 states?
13 states to go.
13 states to go.
Yeah, 13 states to go.
And then what? Then what the fuck are you gonna do?
That's what everybody, like, my family and buddies or whatever, they're like, so what's next? Like, what are you gonna do? I know you're gonna do something.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know. I mean, I really don't know.
You're gonna sit around and watch the fucking Price is Right over there.
Yeah, it's pretty unlikely I'm gonna do that. Like, I just don't have it in me. But I kind of started this thing never really feeling like I'd ever do it. And I mean, I typically start stuff with a goal to finish something, but I mean, this is quite a challenge. And, after last spring, I really feel like I got a chance now,
Yeah.
like I can do this.
Might be a little bittersweet when it's over, but
yeah, without a doubt. I don't think I've met so many wonderful people in different places that I have to go back and visit them, and so maybe Sarah-Lynn and I'll hit the road, do some traveling, and then go see some of these folks. Because I've made some really good friends of people that just took me in and shared their knowledge of their local woods with me.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything from sitting down at the Easter dinner table with a family I've never met before, which that's another story. But I mean, just all kinds of crazy things like that happen. So I saw a Instagram post the other day of somebody that I follow, and they had a comment at the bottom that said, the memories made far outweigh the pursuit. And I think that's like, it really kind of struck home when I read that. I'm like, you know what, that's exactly what it is. It's been the people and the memories that I've built of chasing this lamb have far outweighed, like, the turkey at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty awesome, man. I mean, it's I feel pretty fortunate to do what I'm doing, and also Be able to have some Chasing 49 guys run around with me a little bit to get some really great footage and some great video, wonderful photos that I otherwise would never be able to take, with cell phone stuff. And, just lucky. Every once in a while, blind squirrel finds a nut. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get those kind of experiences buying ribeyes at Walmart.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
That's a great quote, too, because that's what makes all the difference. And I appreciate you coming out here and freezing it around the fire with me.
Yeah,
I always love hearing your stories. Yeah, it's getting chilly.
It's getting there.
We would have been done by now if I would have hit record the first fucking time. But, I always enjoy your stories, and I hope, I feel your message with the travels and the experiences, far outweighing the harvest. And, I just want to say thanks for telling those stories and coming out here and talking to me.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. And, I'm game to do it again. I love telling turkey stories.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to have another one. I know I got a few guys that enjoy seeing what you're doing, some good turkey hunting stuff. So I'm hoping to get out this spring and get my daughter into it. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Do it. Yeah, do it. Stick her in a backpack carrier and take her out there.
Yeah. I don't know if she'd let me carry her. She's about as stubborn as I am, but
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a good place to take her, to get her started, introduced to this sport. So
yeah, turkey's perfect for kids. As you know, I've done a lot of youth hunts, and it's just such a good, controlled environment where it's safe, and the gun handling can be safe and in a controlled manner, and it's just really a perfect sport to kind of cut their teeth on for a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, we're gonna have to get your turkey nugget recipe.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll post that for everyone to get.
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, we can do it.
But yeah, like I said, thanks for coming out, and I hope you guys enjoy the show.